Well, it was a winning weekend after a winning performance last week from Shohei, which has us all excited. And Shohei won. He has a $30 million contract for next season. So we're going to talk about what that means and beyond. Plus, we got a whole lot of Halo questions like what grades would you give team manager and coaches? It's all coming up on Locked On Angels. And you're locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can give us a rate and a review, thanks to those that already have. This helps others find the show. And you can do that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can like, you can comment, you can subscribe, and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
We are so glad you decided to join us for this Monday edition of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. Every day that ends in Y, Mike, is a day that we're covering Locked On Angels, my friend. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
You're not even a dad, and you made a dad joke. And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Well, speaking of parents, it's Mrs. Halo Bro's birthday today. So shout out to Kathy Halo Bro, Kathy Frisch, our mom. Yep. It's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Mama.
We wouldn't be good sons if we didn't shout her out on our podcast. So happy birthday to our mom, Kathy. And happy Monday to us, Mike, because not only did we sweep the Oakland A's last week, we swept the Texas Rangers this weekend. And Mike, that seems to account for just 2 sweeps. It's hard to do that over the internet, but
I know. We're almost on par there. I know that we owe a apology to Locked On Angel listeners. So Friday's episode, we needed to pre-record due to our schedule. Yeah. And then, of course, Shohei decides to pitch a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, are you guys... You're just not going to talk about it?
You're not going to talk about Shohei? You're going to ignore Shohei? No, we would never.
No, we're not talking about it at all.
Shohei. Hey, yeah, Thursday night, Mike, it all started with Shohei Ohtani making news throughout the whole weekend. Thursday night start, 8 innings pitched, 2 hits, 10 Ks. He took that no-hitter into the 8th inning, and it was a tricky play to Liván Soto. And what I loved about that was Ohtani was like, hey, all good. Let's just finish the game. And that's exactly what they did. So they picked up the win on Thursday night. But man, what a great last start at the Big A for Shohei Ohtani. It's just him doing everything that he does. And we're just getting used to it as baseball watchers. And we should not be, because we're spoiled. And Shohei Ohtani is doing phenomenal things. Just one more notch in his MVP belt for 2022, in my opinion.
He looked so relaxed. He looked so calm. Yeah. And he knew what he wanted to throw. He knew where he wanted it to be located. And high five to Max Stassi. Stassi really helped Shohei in some of those later innings. And that's the Stassi that we have come to know, especially last year. And then this year, he just really fell off. So that game was a great indicator that Stassi he's still got it. And he can actually bring it when he wants to. And so Shohei just looked in complete control. He looked like our ace, which he is. And it was just fun to watch him shake off and then go, no big deal. And I'm going to throw this and pointing into Stassi and saying, good call on that one. That was really great. And then, John, we get news on Saturday that he signs a 1-year, $30 million contract to avoid the arbitration process. Now, arbitration is interesting because the first 6 years of any player, the team will pay them in the first 3 years around the league minimum. And then for the next 3 years, there's this arbitration process where if you're a really good player, you go to an arbitrator and you say, I want this much money. And the organization says, well, no, I'm going to pay them this much money. And then the arbitrator selects how much money they get. Right. And so I loved that the Angels avoided all of that because Shohei is well deserving of every single dollar that he receives.
Right.
And getting $30 million is cheap. it's cheap for the Halos,
Shohei,
right?
In 1 year, 100%. Yeah, you know what's great about it is previously it was Mookie Betts who earned $27 million in arbitration. So Shohei gets the highest raise in arbitration history, going from that $5 million to the $30 million. And what I love about this, Mike, it actually is a good indication that the Angels are working in good faith to keep Shohei happy, to
Yes.
pay him what he's worth. Now, obviously, when he hits the free agent market or if he gets a new contract extension, it's going to be much more than $30 million a year. However, because it was a $5 million contract previously, this is the biggest raise that anyone's ever gotten in arbitration. And to avoid that conversation of, hey, I want this much money, and the Angels having to argue back and literally disparage their own player and say, you're probably more about this much money. Like, we've seen that before, and it happens not just in the Angels, but every team has to arbitrate at some point. But to avoid arbitration is a really big signing of good faith, in my opinion, from the Angels. It certainly shows their intent to keep him around. So I don't think that any of us as Halo fans have to worry about that.
No, and I think that this is something that should have happened. We talked about this last week on the pod, that it makes sense because of the ambiguity with the ownership right now. Is Artie actually selling, and is somebody actually interested? And we're hopeful that maybe this offseason, the wheels can be really in motion and that we can get an announcement as to who is actually going to take over. But it makes sense because for 1 year, you've got Shohei on your team, and it gives you a whole year to be able to negotiate a new contract. And our buddy, Andrew from Angels Top Plays, he said that this is going to be a very complex contract. And you need time to work out the details. Like, how does it work with Shohei as a hitter and as a batter? And how does it work with incentives? And if he wins the MVP, do you put any more money in there? And is there moments where he opts out? All of that has to be discussed. And what I liked about this, and perhaps I'm being a bit too hopeful and I'm being a bit too biased, so correct me here, Johnny, if I am, but it really feels like this 1 year, $30 million deal is also Shohei's way of saying, I like it here. I want to be here. I respect you guys. I want to play here. And I think that it actually is a great indication that these two are going to work really well together. And I would not be surprised. So hit record right now. I would not be surprised to see the Angels and Shohei sign a long-term deal this offseason, and that this arbitration deal is just we got you until we sign this long-term deal. This is a good faith investment in you. So we want you to come to the table, bring your agent, let's have a conversation. And maybe in the fall, in the winter, maybe even when spring starts, we'll be able to get some news about the long-term deal that the Angels have signed with Shohei, because I believe he wants to stay here. There's no reason for him to go anywhere else. I think he wants to win here simply because if he wins, he's a hero, right?
Yeah.
So is Mike Trout. He got Mike Trout to the playoffs, and he's helping the Angels get back to the playoffs and perhaps even win a World Series. If he goes somewhere else, it's kind of like that Steph Curry, Kevin Durant issue, right? Steph Curry won with the Golden State Warriors. Kevin Durant came and won after they had already won. And he's gone to different places to try to win. And I think players want to win in a place where it's not expected. And so all of the narrative, all of the conversation that says, oh, the Halos are terrible and you're never going to win there, I think that that's like a challenge to Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, it would be great to see him help us get back to the playoffs and win something, right? And who better to do it than him? Where better place to do it than right here in Anaheim? And say, yeah, you guys complained about the Angels for so long, and not you guys as in fans, but all of MLB. And look what we did. We got us there. And I think he's gonna play a huge part of getting us to the playoffs and the World Series. And you're right. I think that this $30 million signing, just the fact that we didn't hear boo about it until it happened, was a good indication of that the conversation went really well. And I think you mentioned this last week when we were talking about Ohtani's contract, that in a way, even though he deserves to do this, he's not going to rob the Angels in the sense that they need money to go around. Now, look, Artie Moreno has taken this team from $187 million to it's going to sell for $3 billion. So there is plenty of money to go around. And if they don't go at least to the borderline of the luxury tax, let alone go over it, then you know that this is a new owner is way overdue if they don't touch that luxury tax threshold in the offseason. But all that to say, not just a good sign on the Angels' part of showing good faith, but it shows good faith on Ohtani's side to say, I'm satisfied with $30 million for this next year. And let's work it out in the offseason. Let's work it out over next season. We got a full year to figure things out together. And man, how great would it be to finish the season strong like we have, and then have some good news over the offseason that Shohei Ohtani is going to stick with us. And another wrinkle to this, if you get Ohtani long-term, that just adds that much more value to the Angels and their selling price and the incentive for new owners to step in and take over and get this team to be a winning team at the end of the day. And if you have Ohtani on your roster and you know that that's guaranteed for a couple of years, then there's no reason for any owner to not hurry up and take a strike at this team, because man, I would love to own the Angels if I knew Ohtani was going to be part of it and guaranteed to be part of it. So let's hope that that's a big motivator for buyers, that the wheels get rolling on the ownership deal, and that we can finally have some good offseason news for our Halos.
Well, coming up on Locked On Angels, we recap the winning weekend for the Halos. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Built Bar. Have you tried the new Built Puff yet? If you haven't, you got to. It's the cookie dough chunk puff. That's fun to say. This puff is light. It has a chewy texture with real cookie dough chunks. And of course, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassles of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. There's only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 16 grams of protein in them. So go to Built.com to snag a box for you and for the family. It's the perfect treat. Or if you can find a really good hiding place, you can hoard them all for yourself. I do that at my house. All Built bars and puffs are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides a ton of health benefits. You can eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for a workout, late night treat, or just a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than any candy bar. You can ditch the calories, the fat, the sugar, and grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. Again, Built.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and go to Built.com today.
We want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. And just so you know, our 2022 player survey, where you get to grade each member of the Angels roster, is coming to an end on Wednesday. So be sure you take that survey. It's in the episode description. We want to hear from you. We have over 100 responses, but don't let everybody else's opinion dictate the grades. You got to get in there as well. And make sure you grade each player. Leave some comments about how you feel about their season, the player themselves. And then Mike, I think Friday is a great day to share those grades with our audience. So
let's go.
Let's get in those. Get in that survey. Make sure you take that. Get in by Wednesday so we can put it all together on Thursday for you and have that episode ready by Friday. We're really looking forward to it.
Johnny, speaking of Friday, let's talk about last Friday as the Halos began to take on the Rangers this weekend at home. And my favorite guy, Reid Detmers, on the mound. And he looked like the Reid Detmers that we've come to know. 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run. He looked really, really good. And how about Jo Adell? Working on that swing and getting through the zone faster, hit his 8th home run. And then your guy, the guy that you called the player of the year, the guy who was busted out, he's the surprise of the year, Luis Rengifo, 17 home runs as of Friday, hits a bomb in this game. And then Taylor Ward suddenly has found his swing again, 2 for 4. And Ohtani, how about Ohtani? He's 2 for 4, and at the time, he continues a 15-game hitting streak, and the Halos win 5 in a row as of Friday and are off to a really great start against the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, you know what? Even going back to his Thursday game where Shohei was on the mound, he got himself an RBI in that game as well.
That's gotta
and
feel
so
good.
He's just doing it on both sides of the ball and helping himself out as a pitcher. It's just incredible to see. So yeah, Detmers gets his final start of the season and looked so good against the Texas Rangers. And I heard him talking in an interview with Erica Weston afterward. And it's so funny to hear him speak, because I forget that he's a big Texas boy. He's like 22 years old, and he's got a deep Texas voice. And so it's like, oh yeah, I didn't expect that out of Detmers.
And he doesn't feel like a rookie. Like, this is his official rookie season, but it feels like he's been around forever, right? But also, he's just really improved this season. And so, man, to look forward to next season and look at what Reid Detmers can potentially do is really exciting. I could see Reid being a 13, maybe 14 game winner next season, simply because he has put together all of his mechanics and looked fantastic this year. The no-hitter Reid Detmers is back, and I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. Hey, Saturday, we had a final score of Angels 3, Rangers 2, and it was José Suarez's last start of the season.
Incredible.
And he took a perfect game into the 7th inning, Mike.
Wow.
How crazy is that for José Suarez? He was perfect through 6 innings. Then he got to the 7th, and then he allowed a hit and then a 2-run home run in that inning.
Well, I got to tell you, that was my fault. So we were out on Saturday, and I wasn't watching the game because we were out. And when I got home, I checked Twitter, and I saw what the score was and that he hadn't given up a hit or walked anybody. And I went, oh, my gosh, I got to watch this. And then I turned the game on, and then he gave up the hit. And then Nathaniel Lowe hit the home run, and I went, oh, it's my fault. I'm turning it off.
Never change what you're doing. Just keep on doing what you're doing when you hear
apologize
the
to
news.
Everybody. Second apology on the show.
Mike, he fixed his, or I should say, he brought his win-loss record to 8-8. So he's finishing the season as a .500 pitcher and lowered his ERA under 4 with that game. So he was sitting above 4 for the longest time, brought it down under 4, which is great to see. Honestly, first half Suarez is way different from last half Suarez, as we talked about on Friday. So that was great to see. Ryan Tepera got a save. He looked good. It's always a little nerve-wracking when he comes out or Aaron Luke comes out. And then, Mike, all this man has done since he's come up from AA is hit, and Liván Soto got the game-tying RBI double. Yeah. And we'll talk about him again on Sunday doing what he's doing. Matt Thaiss got the go-ahead RBI. Kurt Suzuki in his last start as an Angel at home. He's going to start in Oakland. He got an RBI single. Ohtani, 16 game hit streak for him, and that makes it 6 wins in a row on Saturday.
Yeah, then Sunday comes, and the Angels win this game 8-3, and they just bombarded the Rangers in that first inning with 6 total runs, which was so much fun to watch and so great to see. Ohtani extended his hitting streak, 17 games. And Mike Trout, 39 home runs. You and I said a great finish to the season would be to get to 40 home runs. Yeah. He's got to hit one more. And he's going to do that in Oakland. I can see him doing that in Oakland because he tears up Oakland, right? And, Johnny, can we just talk about Soto? I'm gonna say this right now. Again, hit record. He has won me over, and that guy needs to be on the Major League roster. I'm not going to say he needs to start because I like Rengifo at short and Fletch at second base. But I think Soto's won me over to the point where he needs to be in the rotation of infielders next season because this guy is Eric Ibar. This guy is fired me up offensively and defensively. He's done nothing but hit. There was a great tweet, I think, from Jared Timms where he said that our Soto was since September 17th was hitting over 400, and San Diego Padres Soto was hitting like 286 since September 27th or September 17th, something like that. And we're paying this Soto just, pennies on the dollar. And so I love this guy. I love this kid, and I can see him really being an impactful player for us. And so sign me up to have Soto on this team full time next season.
Yeah, he's played against the Twins. He struggled against Texas, hit well against Oakland, and then hit well against Texas in this series. He got 2 RBIs on Sunday. Do you think it's a big enough sample size? Are you sold on Soto?
Sold.
All right.
SOLD. Sign me up for Soto. Call him Liván.
He shall be a good shortstop. Listen, for me, I think that I've been so disappointed with our prospects over the years. It's just hard for me to know when to pull the trigger on somebody. Yeah. I mean, gosh, you have Mike Trout come up and set a great example in 2012 where it was like, all right, we're all in on Trout. And I know he came up and struggled in 2011 in his debut, and he's never had a run like that ever since then. Right. And he's been great since he debuted. And man, it's like, I want to say yes to Soto, but I'm also concerned. I'm like, okay, is this enough for me, and is it enough to convince Angel fans and the front office?
That's a great point, but here's the reality. Nobody has done what Trout has done in his first, as he first came up since Soto. And so Soto has shown me that he has a great eye. He can play great D. He's got a great bat. And so the prospects in between Trout and Soto haven't come up and really impressed. It's kind of been we're not sure. And then Rengifo, even when he came over, we were like, I'm just not sure about this guy. This year, I think he's solidified himself as a really strong player for our team. But I think what Soto's doing is kind of reminiscent of what Trout did when he first came up. And obviously they're two different players. They're going to have two different types of careers. But that's why I'm convinced, John, because nobody has done this in between that time. And it's when 10, 11 years since that's happened. And so that's why I'm like, sign me up. Let's have him go. Let's see what we can do with this kid at short.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, it takes a while for guys to adjust to the bigs, and Soto's doing it, and he's hitting big league pitching. He's figuring it out. Yeah. I'm okay. I mean, it really puts a wrinkle into our off-season conversation in terms of where the Angels spend their money. But man, if we're short up in that middle infield and we're okay with what we have there, save that money for another position, in my opinion.
Yeah, John, I think this is the Trash Pandas effect. I think that this is what we're going to see from all of those young guys coming up and being in the major leagues. I think that we're going to have to really begin to go, well, who should actually stay and who should actually be backup or maybe depth for us? Because I think once we see a lot of these guys come up, I know I'm going to fall in love really fast because that typically happens. But I think that all Angel fans are going to go, man, I like this guy. And man, I like that guy. And what a great pitcher. And I think we're going to be really, really impressed with the way that Perry has drafted, which has been very different. It's like the antithesis of how our previous GMs have drafted. I think that we actually have some really great players. And as we talk about the offseason, I think that we're really going to have a really honest discussion about how much can we actually spend versus how much we're going to trust these young guys with the major league club.
All right. We're finally going to get to our mailbag segment. Usually we do 2 segments, but we had so much news to cover that we had to push it back to the end. Mike, we have a friend over at Halos in the Infield, Fernando. He sent us a really kind voicemail. He travels a lot for work and he takes us on the road with him. And he had a really interesting question. So shout out to Fernando and Todd over at Halos in the Infield. We love those guys. We were going to get to a game this season, but then I don't know if you saw how this was the first season since 2002 that the Angels came in under 3 million attendance. And I just didn't have the motivation to get out there. We got to a couple games earlier this season. I know you did as well. That kind of put us back. It was like, I don't know if I really want to go. Yeah. Next year we'll catch a game with the Halos and the Infield guys. But let's go to this first voicemail from Fernando.
How's it going, boys? My name is Fernando. Big fan of what you guys are doing. I know what it takes to do a podcast. And to do it every single day the way you guys do it has to be difficult. Yet you guys continue to put on a show, and we appreciate that. Keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are doing a great job. Now, you guys are doing a grading segment with players. I want your opinion on some coaching grades. Phil Nevin, Matt Wise, Reid. Those are the grades that I want to hear from you guys. Boys, keep it going. Love what you guys do. Thanks for keeping me company on these road trips around the country. Viva Los Angelitos!
Fernando, you're a stud, man. Thanks for the voicemail. Mike,
that was great.
We're going to have our, of course, player grades, but as far as coaching, Matt Wise, Jeremy Reid, Phil Nevin, why don't you start with Wise?
I'm going to start with Wise. I'm going to give him a B because I think that this pitching staff has really improved, and I think that Wise has earned another year with the Halos. I think Jeremy Reid gets a D simply because the team has – do we give out Ds anymore or should it just be enough? Because the team has really struggled with hitting, and I know injuries played a factor in that. I can't really tell you why we're hitting now versus why we didn't hit earlier this year, but I think Jeremy Reid should have answers for that, and I don't think he does. And Phil Nevin – I like Phil Nevin. I think that he has really helped this team to grow a bit. And so I'm going to play middle of the road with Phil. I'm going to give him a C+ because I think that he has really helped José Suarez become better. I think Reid Detmers has become better. He's really been able to communicate, I believe in you. You can do this with this team. He really was the perfect guy to kind of manage what nobody wanted to manage. That tension of we're not really going anywhere. We kind of suck. We just lost a whole bunch in a row. And so I'm grateful for Phil. And I don't think that he should be the manager moving forward. Sure. That's my opinion. I think they need to get some fresh life in there, but I would give Phil a C. What are your grades?
I'm giving Matt Wise a C+ because I think that having him foster the relationship with the pitchers that he has over the past few years is a good thing. And I agree with you. I think he gets another chance next season. I give him a C+ because I'm still bitter about some of the things he was not able to identify within our own pitchers. And the fact that Reid Detmers had to go to AAA to figure some things out and come back and meet with Matt Wise again and be on this team again. That bugs me. And I actually think that maybe that was a wake-up call for Matt Wise, because I have liked what I've seen from him and our pitching staff the rest of the way. Jeremy Reed, I'm giving a D- to, because that article about him working with Joe Adell, it's like, okay, so he is doing something. But Mike, you mentioned how the Angels are starting to hit. Well, look who's hitting. Matt Thaiss. You've got Liván Soto coming up from AA. Matt Thaiss was in AAA. Mike Trout is always going to hit. Shohei Ohtani is always going to hit.
You're making great points. Yep.
It's the guys who haven't been around Jeremy Reed are the ones who are hitting really well. Now, that doesn't say much for the fact that, like, this is Renjifo's breakout year. This was Taylor Ward's breakout year. So I think I'm going to give him that. But for me, D-. He's not with the team next season. Phil Nevin, I hope he sticks around in some capacity, because I think he's done a great job of getting this team through to the end of the season. I'm going to give him a B+, because he took on a very difficult situation. I also don't think that he really did much wrong. There weren't things that, like, how many times have you and I talked to each other and said, what the heck was Phil Nevin thinking when he did such and such and such?
True.
And that was significantly less than when we had Joe Madden and the bullpen decisions and the starting pitching decisions. That was every episode. And that was frustrating to us. So for me, I think Phil Nevin was a good, stern, fatherly figure for a lot of these guys, letting guys finish innings, letting guys go out there and have clean innings out of the bullpen. Giving them a B+. Like you said, let's have a new manager next season. But as far as Phil Nevin's performance this season, I can't say I was too frustrated with him. Can't say I didn't like the lineups. He had to make lineups out of the players that were given to him. And I liked what he did for the rest of the season.
One note, Johnny, I would say that I would not be bummed if Phil got a full season to try to figure out how to be a really great manager, because of what we've seen in the last few weeks. He has shown to be somebody that has helped this team kind of rally, because they could have just, thrown the white flag and called it a day, but they haven't. And now they're in the midst of a 7-game winning streak.
Hey, Max Green Rams Baseball on Instagram said, is Shohei not a must trade considering what we'd get for him? He'll leave anyways. Ouch. Ouch. Ow. What do you think, Mike?
I don't think he's going to leave, because I think he really wants to be here. I think that they have time to consider what sort of trade package they can put together. I get it. If they don't trade him in the offseason and then you go to the mid-trade point during the season, the trade package is going to look a bit different. But I think with Shohei, you got to play the long game with him, and you got to figure out if you can sign him to a long-term deal. And if you can't, then you trade him. But if the Angels are in contention next season, he's not going anywhere.
No.
And they're going to have him be on the team, especially if they make the playoffs. And if they go to the playoffs and win the World Series, I think that just incentivizes Shohei to sign with us again. But I don't think that being a trade piece and sending Shohei somewhere else should even be in the top 3 or 4 priorities for Perry Manassian this offseason or next season. If we're losing by June and July, then yes, I think I would try to package him and put him in a deal unless he signed a long-term deal with the Halos. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you run it back. You've got him for this year. It was guaranteed, and they landed on that $30 million. So you might as well run it back, try again, go out and get a couple of position players that you want to sign and bring on this team to help you out. But Mike, also, our best years were the years when we had the Kendricks and the Ibars and the Napolis, like those guys from the minors come up and perform. And now we're seeing that from Renjifo and Ward and Soto. And it's and then we have the supporting cast that we've signed, like Rendon, barring that he doesn't get injured. And I think it just is going to take a few more signings for us to really come out of the gate strong next season.
Yeah. And I would say don't allow the narrative of other baseball fans of other teams to tell you that Shohei's leaving because he wants to win. I think Shohei wants to be here and wants to win here.
Right.
And so we just kind of almost have to like plug our ears and la 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 la.
You can't triple stamp, Lloyd.
All right. So next question is from Manny Man 2112. He says, am I the only one who thinks that it was a huge mistake to let Sierra go? So Magnuis Sierra was released. He was DFA'd to make some room on the roster. Johnny, what do you think about Sierra? Was that a bad decision, a mistake?
No, I don't think so. I think that they really wanted to see what they had with Moniak and let Joe Adell get some reps as well. Now, obviously, Moniak had to go down because of the injury, so that took place after they let Sierra go. But they had 4 outfielders, and there was only 10 games left by the time that it was happening. So, in my opinion, he was a great defender. I think he was great in the outfield. It was a get me over, get us through the season kind of player. And the bat wasn't really there either. But he was great in the outfield, and he was great for what we needed, and that was just having a strong defender and body in the outfield. But I really think that decision was made because they anticipated trying to see what Moniak had and what Joe Adell has. Now they're playing with only 3 outfielders for 3 more games. They're going to let Fletcher and Duffy and Rengifo kind of take that emergency spot. But you really there's 3 games left, so none of these guys are going to be sitting out. It's going to be Adell, Ward, and Trout in the outfield for the next 3 games. So yeah, I don't think it was too big of a mistake. We have lots of outfield prospects that are going to help us out.
Right. Yeah. And it was really a choice for Moniak. It was a depth piece, that. I don't think it was a big deal. He's somebody that could come in and fill in, but isn't going to be an impact player. John, DKN36 said, who should the Angels sign for left field? Gallo, Benintendi, or Joc Pederson? We've had this conversation on the show a couple of times about left field. I'm leaning Joc just because I think that he's kind of a more full package sort of offensive player. Plus, I think that he could just bring some really great energy, and we tried to get him a few years ago. What do you think? Which of those 3 guys would you like to see if we had to choose? Who would you like to see play left field for the Halos?
Man, I did some research with this question, and I was surprised at the results. Gallo has 5 defensive runs saved in 2022. Benintendi has 2. Joc has -3 defensive runs saved. So you kind of have who's the best defender out of there? Well, surprisingly, it's Gallo. Yeah. However, he's got a .5 WAR and the worst batting average. He does have 18 home runs. Yeah. Benintendi has a 3.2 WAR with 5 home runs and a very consistent 304 average, 772 OPS. Joc Pederson, however, has a 1.4 WAR, 23 home runs, a 275 average, and an 880 OPS. So to me, it's you have a very sure thing in Benintendi in that he's going to hit well. He's not going to hit as many home runs, but he's going to be great in the outfield. Gallo is going to stink as an offensive player. He's going to be great as a defender, but he is going to give you that home run pop. And then Pederson, I think, is somewhere in the middle, 1.4 WAR. Yeah. And those extra home runs would be pretty sweet. So, Mike, do you want a strong defender, all-around guy like Benintendi? Do you want a great defender in Gallo who gives you some pop sometimes? Or do you want somebody like Pederson who might not be great in left field, but will give you a consistent average and some pop with 23 home runs?
I'm still going to go with Joc just because of his extra pop. And gosh, it'd be great to see him really hit those bombs to right field on that short wall. Benintendi's really struggled with the Yankees, and I think that that's an indication of maybe what might happen next season. I think this season might be an anomaly, and he'll actually come back down to earth. And we've seen that in the past when we've signed big money free agents like Josh Hamilton, right? He had a great first half, and then he was terrible, and then we signed him to a 5-year $1,000 million deal, and then he just fell apart for us. And so I'd love to see Joc on the team. I think that left-handed bat in our lineup would be great. I think you could go left, right at the top of the lineup with Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, and Joc Pederson. Man, I think that could really be an impressive and intimidating top of the lineup for the Angels.
Yeah, I think I like the threat that Pederson is and the protection he can offer to guys like Ohtani, Trout, and Rendon, because then you're going to have to deal with his bat. Honestly, I think between Benintendi and Pederson, I would lean Joc Pederson and fulfill the destiny of actually getting him in 2020 when he can't. But now we have Rengifo and Pederson on the same team. They would have swapped teams back then.
We'll take it. Yeah.
But for me, I think I would be okay with Benintendi or Pederson getting signed. Pederson has actually gotten better than last year's season with the Braves. Yep. Even though it was a World Series winning season, then he won it, of course, with the Dodgers in 2020. So to see him improve and be strong with the Giants, I know the Giants struggled this season. I think I'm leaning Pederson. I'll sacrifice some defense for some offense and a threat in the batting order.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. Now make your second listen, the Locked On MLB podcast with MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan. He's going to share all sorts of stories about the playoffs, be a great follow for you during the playoffs season as he talks about all the different teams and does some really great interviews. You can follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, and of course on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. And keep up with us there. Get in our mentions, DM us, tweet at us, message us. We love hearing from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, John and I are going to share one stat that will prove that Shohei Ohtani is the MVP, even on a bad team. That's tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Stat.
The one stat. The one chocolate, Swiss, cheese. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Swiss. Sorry, Boy Meets World. The one thing. We're going to give you the one thing.
One word.
One word. And Shohei Ohtani, why he's the MVP, we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Love it. Love it. All right, y'all. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Angels. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow for more Angels baseball talk.